Blobs. Right. Blobs are, they come in various flavors. So blobs are all contained inside a container. They're a flat list of things inside that container. There is no directory structure. But if you put a / in it, most tools conventionalize that as a directory structure. So you can effectively have what looks like a directory structure even where one doesn't exist. It is just a simple flat list. For some reason, you can also have a special container called $root, which allows you not to have a container. I'm not sure why. They claim it's something to do with Silverlight. I'm not sure why you'd want to use it like that. You can have a total of 100 terabytes per account, so you can have multiple storage accounts. Each storage account maxes out at 100 terabytes. So if you want more than 100 terabytes, you have to have multiple storage accounts. It's quite common, we've seen, for people to have a development storage account and a production storage account. So the developers can mess about without having to worry about live data. All of your blobs can have metadata, which is basically just a name-value pair of metadata which you can associate with your blob for whatever programming purposes you have for that data. You can have a total of 8 kilobytes per blob for metadata. If you need more than that, put the metadata itself into the blob.
Is the value of blob or is it text?
It's just. I think it's an arbitrary .NET type. So it's a string, int, double, that kind of thing. So there's security. So how do I ensure that other people can't change my blobs if everything's via a REST API? Everything is via a REST API, but it all goes into a HTTPS endpoint, and there are two. I think they're symmetric, but somebody else was saying they're asymmetric. I didn't bother checking. Keys per storage account, which basically, when you say I want to upload a blob, you send a request via HTTP. You include your key, and then it allows you access to perform that operation. If you don't pass in the appropriate key, it says, no, you can't replace that blob, go away. So, and you can get much more granular access on blobs. You can order to allow other people to upload or change or share or download information from a particular blob. And that's something that I'm going to go into later, after I talked about lots of other things, and my voice is probably gone. Right. Some of this is hidden for you behind the .NET API, if that's what you use. If you don't use the .NET API, you're going to need to be aware of this stuff. If you want a simple blob, basically you've got a max of 64 megabytes. This is, I want to upload everything in one HTTPS request. If you need to upload it at more than 64 megabytes, you can't use one request only. Kind of makes sense. This is targeted for your simpler files, your images, your text files, your logs, all that kind of thing. It's very easy to do, but it is a limited size. Block blobs start to get a little bit more interesting. Again, so your max size has jumped up, 200 gigabytes, which is starting to be useful. So this is targeted at stream workloads. For example, streaming video. I don't know, whatever you want to stream data, streaming audio, whatever you want to do. It's a two-phase commit, and it's non-standard block sizes. So it allows you to upload a large file with easy retries, out of order if necessary, and then at the end you can say, right, I'm done. So an example of this, again, animation, stolen slide. So you can upload your blocks. You tend to upload blocks more than one at once using put block. You can upload a block. When a block fails, all you do is you just retry and you finish uploading that block. You now have all the blocks that make your file available in Azure. It returns you block IDs or something to confirm each upload when it happens. And then in one transaction you say, these blocks in this order constitute my file. I'm trying to remember what the max, I think it was max 4 megabyte per block. So you have to do that. All of this is hidden behind the .NET API if that's what you use. So it will do it for you. In fact, I think any file larger than 4 megabytes, it will actually upload as a block blob. It won't actually try and upload a large simple blob. And it will also do parallel uploading for you. Page blobs. Right. Max of 1 terabyte. Okay. I was wrong. It wasn't 2 terabytes, it's 1 terabyte. The blocks are now fixed. 512 bytes per block. They're aligned on a 512 byte boundary. Any prizes for guessing why 512 bytes? It's the size of a size of sector on a hard drive. Yep. So targeted random byte workloads, and it's basically only there for a drive blob as far as I can tell. Interesting thing is, this is the drive blob. This is what I was talking about. This is your NTFS API. So you can just load it, and it supports full NTFS API. It's actually a page blob. And only one, so this is what I was saying about only one machine can actually have write access to it. So it opens the lease, takes that lease for a minute. If it doesn't renew the lease within a minute, all the other machines can have a go at obtaining that release. So it's a very simple voting mechanism for master-slave on a multiple machine in workers. So only one machine can be master. And each VM can mount up to 16 separate drives. So that is your persistent storage. That's one of your persistent storage options with Azure. So a page blob, you start off, you can write 5K, you clear a section, you overwrite, always maintaining the block boundaries, and then you can just truncate. Simple as that. It is just exactly what you think it's going to be. It's number of bytes, and you're only charged for the number of bytes you're actually storing, not the actual size of it. So if you have a 1 terabyte drive and you only use 100K, you only pay for 100K. If all the rest is unused, even though it's allocated. Snapshots. This is quite clever. So, going back to the block blob, we have our 4 blocks. That's our file. What we then do is we then decide, okay, we're going to change it. We're going to change a bit of it. You upload another block, and you say, I want to store my file, which consists, which consists of these blocks. Okay? You're not paying. So when you upload that, you say, okay, that's my new file. One goes away, just disappears. You're not using it anymore, unless you say, I want a snapshot. And so you add, a timestamp onto your URL. So then you can actually get at the file as it was at that point in time, or you can get at the file as it is now. And all you pay for is your individual blocks. So you only pay for blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, even though you have 2 copies of the file which are unique. So if you want, so you can actually create snapshots. So you can do that for block blobs, and you can do that for page blobs. So you're only charged for unique blocks. And again, it's just the right pages and the right block list. So once you do that, you can actually go back in time, which is again is quite a cool feature, especially if you want to do things like difference indices or reverting changes or whatever. You can just roll back and throw away the blocks that you don't want anymore. All right. Shared access signatures. So all operations, restricted operations, are via HTTPS, and you give them a shared signature, your signature. If your signature doesn't match, it doesn't let you do it. What happens if I want to allow somebody else to upload a URL, upload a file, for example? What I can do then is I then create a shared access signature for that blob for that container. And that will allow other people access to actually do this. There are two types. There's a container level shared access signature, and there's ad hoc. Ad hoc is something that Microsoft are very keen you don't do, which is understandable because you can't revoke it. At container level, you can actually revoke the permissions after you've created them. And as these permissions are effectively encapsulated in a URL, if anybody has that URL, on an ad hoc basis, they can do that permission on that file. So, and there is also a limited time availability. I believe it's an hour. So the maximum time you can give somebody for an ad hoc access is 1 hour. So on a container, what you can do is you can specify a policy, which has a start time and expiry time permissions. Those permissions might be read, modify, write, the standard kind of permissions you'd expect. The container must be public, and it gives you a URL. So that URL says, am I a container? What's the policy? And a signature for those parameters, for that query string. And of course, the blob is there. So you've got your container and your blob there. So if, for example, I want to just give somebody access to upload their own photo, I give them this and I say, yes, you can upload for this period of time. Once you're done, I can then revoke your permissions and you can't upload again. On an ad hoc one, it's very similar, but all of the parameters are basically stored on the URL line itself. So your start date, your end date, and your permissions are all actually in the URL. And the only way to revoke one of these is actually to get rid of the whole container where all of the blobs could be, which is a bit brute force. Not recommended, but just covered for completeness. So, a few last points on blob storage. If you're using the client library, there is a 90-second timeout by default. Apparently this is hit by loads and loads of people. If your file takes longer than 90 seconds to upload, the .NET client library will throw you out and fail. If you know your upload is going to take longer, change the default timeout. I think that's pretty much their top request, that's their top problem they get. If you're uploading, upload blocks in parallel, just because. For shared access signature, always share the URL using HTTPS. Don't share it using HTTP. People can obviously see your traffic and see your blob on its way through. And use containers intelligently. So, for example, if you want a rotating log system, just basically create a container every log period. So, say every day or every month, and name those uniquely. So that when you want to throw away your old logs, all you do is you just simply delete the container and they're all gone. But you don't name containers the same because garbage collection takes time. So you can't have logs 1, logs 2, logs 3. When I get to the end of logs 3, I'll drop logs 1 and recreate it because the actual deletion of logs 1 can take time. So you would name it logs January 2011, logs February 2011, and go forward on a date basis like that. That's it for blobs.